Photogenic.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Okay. Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. I can see why you want to do this today than during working hours.
Absolutely.
You can't
Yeah.
you can't do something like this during the working hours
No, no, I won't.
unless you build a studio.
Well, I do have the office down there where I do my lives, where
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just totally private and quiet and everything.
exactly.
But
Oh,
but yeah, I wanted to do it up here because we got the sign and the car and everything. And
everything's
yep,
official.
yep. So all right,
Yeah.
hey, it's Keith at Noel Automotive, and we've got Scott Semler here and his '69 Super Bee, and we're just going to talk a little bit about the car and the history of it.
Perfect, Keith.
So yeah. So let's just start off and talk about like when you bought the car.
Well, it was in 1973. I was a sophomore at Mid Prairie High School down at Wellman, and of course, of that era, we were all into muscle cars. And I had looked at a Chevelle 396 at Buck Walters down there in Wellman, and it wasn't quite what I was looking for. And my dad had the hardware store 30 years down in Wellman, and he had a good friend that was the car salesman in Iowa City at Hartwig Motors. And it was interesting, Norm Richmond was his name. And Norm Richmond is who Daryl and Judy Grecian, the previous one owners, ordered that car, spec'd that car from Norm Richmond.
Okay.
And that was in 69. So 73 comes along, they get married, they're going to have a child. They knew they couldn't keep the 69 Super Bee two-door car, so they traded that car on a four-door sedan. This car comes in, one owner, Norm Richmond knew these folks, knew that car. He calls Dad down at the hardware store and he says, Ed, I got a hell of a one-owner trade just came in the lot. And you and Scott are looking for a muscle car. This will be the car. So we go up to Iowa City on a Monday night when Hartwig's used to stay open.
Okay.
Got in that thing, looked at it, fell in love with it. It had red line tires, Firestone, the old
Polyglass or bias
polyglass
clay.
belted
Yeah.
tires.
Yeah.
With it had a kind of a turban type wheel cover, and I don't know if I still have those, but it was a good looking wheel cover on it.
Right. Right. Just a full wheel cover.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it had the Dodge. It had a raised stamp on it. Had Dodge logo.
And
It was a beautiful
those
car.
are long gone, or you don't have those
I
anymore.
cannot find them. I was looking down at the shop there for them.
That would be really cool if you still had them.
Exactly, Keith.
Right.
And so I said to Dad, I said, my God, this is the car. Well, Norm says, well, let's get in and take her out for a drive. And I'll never forget this. 383 mag, automatic column shift. I get it out on Riverside Drive, and we start going down from Hartwig's to get on Highway 1 to go south of town. And I noticed this transmission would kind of clink, when it would shift. I never drove a transmission like that because Dad's Pontiac or his Fords always had a smoother shift to them.
But the torque flight just hit hard. Yeah.
And Norm says, well, welcome to Moparville and Torque Flight.
Uh-huh.
And I said, that's what makes this car what it is. So I said, so there's nothing wrong with the transmission? And I got into her, and she was just giving a good definitive shift. He says, nope.
Fun.
And so we drove her down, I don't know, 3 miles outside Iowa City on one, just ran like a kitten. And this had 63,000 miles on the odometer when I bought it.
So in 3 years, they really racked up the miles on it.
That was his, and I talked to Daryl, and we can talk about that too, Keith, while
Yeah.
we're on that subject. So Daryl Grecian had a very successful hair salon operation. He did a lot of hair transplant, like follicle transplants.
Really?
He's originally from Lone Tree, and again, he and his wife Judy married from Lone Tree, bought this car brand new, spec'd it out. So fast forward in time, I knew Daryl was in the area, but I don't know, I was working, I didn't take the time to seek him out, but I had a friend that went to him in Cedar Rapids and said, he was in my house and he saw a picture of that car and he says, that's Daryl Grecian's car. And I said, well, how do you know Daryl? Well, I go to his shop. Well, then in time, we found out Daryl had pancreatic cancer and he was failing. And this would have been in 2017,
Okay.
I believe, when that happened. Well, he was diagnosed. So I reached out to Daryl. He had his hair salon right down there off of Canterbury, well, Duffy Schomburger's Court, that
Okay.
road off of J Street. That's where he had his shop. So I called him and I said, Daryl, this is Scott Semler. I'm the one that bought your car after you traded it in. And unfortunately, you are in ill health. I'd like to have you come out and look at the car. And he just about lost it. And he told me, he said he'd do that. So him and his wife and his son drove over to my place in Cedar Rapids. This is back when I kept it out in Palo in a real nice 4-stall garage. And I peeled the car cover off. Of course, I had this thing repainted in 1995 by Dean Miller, former classmate of mine down there at Mid Prairie. We did it at his shop in Kelowna. And him and Judy were just in like awe. They were
Yeah.
almost they were tearing up,
Right.
because they have pictures of this car when they got married in it. I mean, it was their baby.
Do you have any of those pictures?
No, I don't,
No,
Keith.
no.
They
That's
do.
all that they do. Okay.
In fact, I still keep in touch with Judy. Daryl since then passed.
Sure.
About 4 months after I took him out in the car.
Nice.
He passed.
Okay.
But he passed with a big smile on his face.
Yeah. That's great that you reunited in with it.
Absolutely. And Judy and I are still connected because she's down at Methwick in Cedar Rapids, and my neighbor lady just recently moved there. And I knew that Daryl and her lived there because when we met, that's where they said they sold their house over by Solon and moved to Methwick.
Okay.
So I see Judy and I tell her that, you've been doing all this great work for the car, and she's so excited, and she's sent pictures to her grandchildren because they've always heard about this car from Daryl. And she's even asked me if something happens to me, she would like to have first opportunity to buy the car back and keep it back in the family.
Oh, I see.
That's
Okay.
kind of where this thing is at right now, because
Okay.
I have no children, and my
Yeah.
nephews, one would probably have it, but my Monte Carlo, the other one wants that, and he'll get that.
Okay.
My '77 Monte. But this old girl, Sheila and I, my wife, talked about this, and we think, this is probably meant to be to let it go back to the family where it originated from.
Okay.
And the grandkids are just, so excited
So they're
about it.
probably in their 30s or something, right? Or
Probably, late 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
These kids are.
Yeah.
Judy's probably, I don't know, 83, 84, good shape.
right, right. But the kids are old enough they would appreciate it and
Oh, yeah.
not go out and destroy it or something.
No,
or
no,
sell it. That'd be the worst thing is if they wanted a payday is to sell the car right away.
I know, Keith. I thought of that too. I thought,
Yeah.
do I put it out to somebody that's really going to want it and take care of it? But
Or is it just going to get sold and sold and sold and yeah.
that's the thing. What's funny about this car? When I bought it, it's 63,000 miles. Fast forward in time, I've got 77,000,
Yeah, you just haven't
200
driven it.
something on there.
So when did you retire?
3 years ago in
Okay.
2022, September of 22
Okay.
is when I turned 65, and then I retired.
Okay.
But you think about 63, 70, that's 14,000 miles in 49, 50 years. That's
Yeah.
insane.
Right.
I mean, right there, Brian's car will probably see 5,000 a year.
He's already got like over 3,000 miles on that engine.
See?
Yeah, and as soon as I give it back to him, he's gonna just keep on keeping on.
Every car show there is,
Yep.
he'll be there.
He was at one yesterday, I guess. So,
Yep,
yeah.
yep,
So anyway,
yeah.
back to 1973. You and your dad bought this used at Hartwig Dodge in Iowa City.
And get this. So that car, I have the build sheet in it,
Mm-hmm.
$3,941 from the Fenton, Missouri factory. It's got all the specs on it.
Right.
I don't know that we bought that car for $1,450, including tax,
Yeah.
back in that day. And that
Right.
would have been early '73 because I didn't get my license until August of that year. So
Okay.
I'd had that car before I had my license.
So in '73, I was 3 years old. So
Yep.
I was born in '70. Yeah.
Yep. So you were just 3. And this old girl come off of the lot. Of course, I've always kept it in. We've got a nice garage down there. Before Dad bought the acreage, I
Yeah.
had it in the garage. And then he bought the acreage, and we put a 4-car garage up, and of course it stayed in there. And then I brought it to Cedar Rapids, and I had it in a couple of garages up there because I wanted to drive it more and get it out. But speaking of that, so in time, obviously August 10th of 2020, we had the damn derecho hit Cedar Rapids
Right.
and surrounding communities. Well,
Yeah.
my Monte Carlo, which has only got 32,100 miles on a 77, which you've seen.
And that's still original paint.
That's still
That thing is
original.
beautiful.
Everything. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, these old girls sat out in Palo in a nice 4-car garage. I rented half of the garage from this lady, right there in Palo. And derecho comes through, you know what it did. And I've got pictures, I think I've even showed you, of these 2 cars sitting under the garage door. The big two-stall garage door came down in the winds, took it right off the hinges, put that garage door right over my Monte Carlo and my Super Bee, and just ground it back and forth, up and down,
As the wind was blowing. Yeah.
for an hour plus.
Right.
And then, so I went out there, knew that I had to face what was happening, because I knew, I thought that Palo didn't escape this either.
Right.
That's only 9 miles from my house. So I drove out there and I thought, oh my God, what did I do to deserve this?
Right, because it just went straight east on Highway 30.
Yep.
Basically, it followed that path.
And I mean, I got pictures of it. I still pull it up. And then I think this was a blessing. This wasn't damaged worse than it was, because
Sure.
the side of the garage where that car sat on the outside, and then the Monte sat on the inside, that wall next to that got blowed out. And I thought all the debris that could have went through that side could have just scratched up the side of the car.
Right.
She had sawhorses up in the attic above the car on the beams. That could have come down on it.
Right.
It didn't.
It could have been a lot worse.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so then when we're talking about that, I was devastated. Of course, my buddy from Kelowna that I've known for years, which you probably know who he is, Joe Swartzenduber of Joe's Garage.
Okay.
That's what he does. He's
Right.
He's the one that did Darwin Foster's restoration
Right.
on that 68.
Right. You also did Tim McDowell's
That
father-in-law, that silver
Right,
Super Bee.
Kevin Yoder, good friend
Okay,
of mine.
right.
Yep, he did that Super Bee, and he's got now Kevin Yoder's 67 Fairlane GT down in his shop.
Okay.
He's rebuilding that because Kevin found it from a local Wellman guy that had it in a chicken house, and it was just rotted.
Yeah.
And Kevin wanted to bring it back because that was his first. He and I are 1 year apart. So goes back to these cars, how it's just in your blood. And so I called Keith. And I knew you, Keith, in the time, but I guess I didn't reach out to you because I thought of Joe first
Right.
about this restoration. Because I said, hey, I got them out of the garage. I washed them up. I said, they're all scratched up on the trunk. The Super Bee took the biggest hit on the vinyl top, on the back, just above the glass.
Right.
He says, I'm booked right now, Scott, as much as I'd like to help you. But he says, Riley Hirschberger at Iowa Paint and Collision down in Kelowna would be able to do that job as good, if not better than I could. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. There's somebody like you out there that, I mean, I knew Riley because his mother is a classmate of mine from Mid Prairie, and his
Okay.
dad. So I've known the Hirschbergers. So I called Riley, and he said, yep, I know about your cars. He said, I'd love to have the opportunity. So I drove them down. They drove fine, just
Right.
all scratched up on the back end.
Yeah.
So Riley Hirschberger did an excellent job of repainting these cars, the Monte and the Super Bee.
Mm-hmm.
Then he took that Monte down to Midwest Classic Restoration in Wapello to do the vinyl top. Because I mentioned to him, I said, hey, I hear about Keith Noel up here at West Branch. He's a Mopar guru. He's got a good reputation. Maybe we ought to take it up there. And he says, I'm planning on doing that. That was the Super Bee.
Right.
So he got the Monte back, then he brought the Super Bee up, and you saw how damaged. Of course, he had it all painted up then, but the
Right.
damage on the vinyl top.
Yep. So yeah, we pulled the headliner out, pulled the back seat out, and then we were able to look at the build sheet.
Yes.
Pulled the back seat out, pulled the interior apart, pulled the headliner out, popped the dent out, And did we pull the rear glass too? I think we did.
I think you did.
Yeah, we pulled the rear glass.
That was delicate.
And did the vinyl top and put it all back
Perfect.
together.
That
and,
vinyl top, that had a groove that deep in it. I remember you had to take a 2x4, you told me,
Pop
and
it
pound
out.
that thing back up
Yep.
to
yep.
get that leveled out.
Yep.
I mean, that's how severe a damage the post of
Right,
that door did
right.
up and down on that car.
Yeah, so I would love to have those pictures just
Okay.
so I could copy them.
Absolutely.
And
I'll
we'll add
send
them
those to you.
Yeah, we'll add them to the video.
You bet.
Okay.
You bet.
So yeah, we got the paint and body work done. Redid the stripe. It's Stripe Delete, so it's just got the B emblem on it, no stripe.
Right.
And put that on there. And
Well,
put,
then, you're not talking about that, Keith. So Keith, again, talking about eye for detail, when I bring this car up here to get this done, and I showed him the bill sticker, he said, well, he said, that's a Stripe Delete. Where's the Super B logo? Because Daryl must have taken that off and just had that little B emblem.
oh, that's right.
Remember that?
Couldn't remember. Yeah.
That little B emblem on the back there. And Riley didn't want to, I don't know if, no, he didn't. He must have sanded around that. I don't think he got that far down. He kept everything on the quarters down was original, and that paint was still good. It was just on the top of the quarters and the trunk lid, the trunk deck, and the back of the trunk lid is where he had to paint. And so I always thought that little Super B emblem was what a Stripe Delete was.
Right.
And then you showed me that no, it's supposed to have the Super B logo.
It's
So
just
I
the
said, well,
stripe.
let's-
So the code V88. So if
Exactly.
it was V8X, would be a black stripe like Brian's.
Yep.
But the 8 designates delete. So
Delete.
Stripe Delete.
And I personally like that stripe. If you remember, you and I talked about.
We almost put it back on. Yeah.
And I thought, God, it would look so nice on that car because I
Right.
just love stripes on these cars like that. But then I thought, I'm a purist like you.
Yeah.
Try to keep it as pure as possible.
And it's unique to have a Stripe Delete. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And so we went to that route, put that on, and talking about the paint, when Riley did that, I thought, well, how's this going to match up? But Riley said, Dean Miller down there, Jim Lefevre, was his painter at the time, and he's another Mid Prairie grad. He did an excellent job on. I only had to replace one left quarter, I think a left quarter panel on that car. Otherwise that car was very solid. Floor
Okay.
pan, all the fenders. When we sanded this thing down to bare metal,
And that was in 1995.
95.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So what was a full paint job and metalwork in 1995?
I've got the receipt. I put everything underneath that, with including all the grommets and the year one stuff that we got. $6,600
Okay.
out the door.
Right.
And I put that in, I took it to Kelowna in the fall. We pulled the engine out, the tranny out. We didn't do anything with it. I guess we did do a replacement, a water pump and a fuel pump. But as we've talked, Keith, with those low of miles, I always thought the engine, it ran like a son of a gun, didn't smoke, of course I never drove it enough to know if it used
Right.
oil.
And you and Daryl had taken meticulous care of it the whole time. Like the inside of the engine was super nice.
Well,
I mean, it was super clean. It was just worn out.
it was just worn out.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was a good thing. That's why I got to thank Keith again for broadening my knowledge about, just because it's got 77,000 miles doesn't mean the engine isn't worn out.
Right. Right.
And then when we decided to pull the engine, because that was the
Yeah.
thing we started then I brought it up to have the vinyl top done.
Right.
Then you did that. Then we did some testing. We did some leak down tests, and
Yeah.
it was okay.
That's when you decided let's put some hardened seats in it.
Yep.
So we started out with a head job.
Yep.
And so we took that up to Scott Sperry's engine,
Yep.
and he got the heads done and hot tanked and bead blasted the intake. And then we brought the car back up here, and we're like, well, let's just do the engine.
Let's look at that
And then
engine.
you were looking at retirement, so you're just like, well, let's just like really fix this car up.
That's what I've done. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, right.
Yep. So, and God bless Scott. He is so buried with work.
I know it.
What did that take? Like 3 or 4 months?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I brought this into Keith in November of 23.
Right.
I drove it up in November 23. Then you brought it back to me in
For storage.
January,
Right.
right, or late December, because you were going to Kissimmee to Meekum
Right.
that January.
Yep.
So we brought the car back to Wellman, and then then we brought it back up in the fall or in the spring of that year to take the rest of the engine out,
Yeah.
the block and everything out.
Yep.
So the old girls had 2 transit trips to Wellman and back,
Not running. Yeah.
not running. If I had it to do over, we'd have just pulled the engine all at one time.
Right. We would have got it
do
done
it.
sooner. But yeah, so Scott took forever on that, but he's just, like I said, he's covered up with work, and it's not like you're daily driving it. You
No.
didn't need it to get to work.
I've always said, I want this done right the first time, and
Yep.
that's why I've always entrusted Keith and the team here, as well as I've known Scott Sperry for many, many years.
Yeah.
I mean, really didn't get to know him until he had the engine up there, but he's
Right.
got a tremendous reputation.
Yep.
And I thought, patience, my friend.
Yep.
You've waited this many years.
Yep. So yeah, he got the all the machine work done. Then we brought it back here and we built it and put it on the test stand and ran it.
Yeah.
Chris, my painter, painted it.
Yes.
And then we pulled the K-frame, and me and the team put it in through the bottom.
My God.
And so yeah, we're gonna go drive it here in a little bit.
Yeah.
What else? What else?
Well, then we
So-
get talking. Keith and I were in dialogue, and of course, I said, Keith, I haven't put really any money in this old girl other than
Yep.
oil changes. Well, the paint job, and then obviously the paint, repaint on the back of the trunk, and,
and
of
that
course
was
insurance covered all
insurance,
that.
right?
Thank God insurance covered that. I think I had $13,000 in insurance claims that American Family paid 100%. It was all under comprehension on my insurance. That was including all the paint, the vinyl top repairs, 2 new custom car covers for it. Everything was paid for. And so I can't say enough good about that, even though I pay my premiums. And then I did have them appraised. So I've got the right appraisal numbers on them.
Yep.
And I guess, crap, let me turn this off here. That's
Hawkeye fight
That's
song.
not Kirk Ferentz or anybody calling me from Iowa right now. Let me take that off here. There. Well, you never know.
Yeah.
When you got Mopars like this, people know you. They want to know you.
Right.
So some of the Iowa people like, hey, I don't have a car like that. I'd like to have that.
But so yeah, then you're let's just fix everything. So we went ahead and did the power disc brakes setup.
Yeah,
So
because I
got
had
rid of
a
the
near
drums.
miss out on Interstate 80 coming back when I drove that car back the first time. Mm-hmm. We drove it back after you did all leak down. And it was when all that crap was at 380 and 80, and I had to put the brakes on hard because it was all tight. And
Right.
the old drums, you remember it was pulling a little bit to the left.
It
and
was, yeah.
God, I thought, gee, many Kerwillikers, I need to do a little better on these brakes.
Yep.
But again, I've never had that come up before either.
Right.
Well, then, in
Today's
time,
traffic is just insane.
it is.
So you gotta be able to stop like a modern car.
Exactly.
And then also we did the rear differential gears. So
Rear differential.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So the car was ordered with it's the A04. No, I'm sorry, the A31 package. So the A31 package is on the fender tag, and that's the Super Track Pack for the 8 3/4, which is the 391 gears.
Yep.
So that's the way the car was born.
Exactly.
But at some point, Daryl changed that to a 355.
Yes.
And we didn't know it was a 355 until we disassembled it.
Exactly.
And it was stamped right on the ring and pinion 355.
And then, Keith, was that when the pinion seal was leaking on the front of the rear end. Mm-hmm. And that was needing to be repaired anyway.
Right.
And then we start talking and say, that for a highway driver, that 391 gear, and I didn't know it had 355 in it.
Right.
Daryl never even told me that on our drive to Center Point and back.
He probably forgot about it. He probably did that like as soon as he got married or something. I don't know. But,
Yeah, because it was his daily driver. And I said,
Yeah.
well, you even drove it in the snow? And he says, oh, yeah. He said, that was my daily driver. I washed the hell out of it when I drove it through snow. which kept those fenders and everything pretty solid
Yeah.
for 4 years. But so that was a good find when you
Right.
opened the rear end up.
That's crazy. So Judy is still alive. So
Yep.
you need to ask her and find out if she remembers, like, did Daryl complain about the mileage or how fast it went or something, and find out if she knows about the rear end gears getting changed.
I will.
Because that's interesting. Like, you never knew it,
I never knew
and
it.
we knew that it's on the fender tag and the build sheet 391s,
Right.
but all this time it had a 355 in it.
Would that make sense though, with him having this as a daily driver? That
Right.
he didn't get, I mean, why, the thing that I find mystifying with that, Keith, is he ordered this car with Norm Richmond. They both went to Hartwig, him and Judy. They sat in Norm's office and they ordered all these options because I
Yeah.
went through the gamut. Well, Daryl, for God's sakes, why didn't you buy a Hemi and a 4-speed pistol grip?
Yeah.
This is what I would have done. Well, he says, I was 21 years old. I barely had enough money to pay for this car the way it was. And I damn sure didn't have the money to run a Hemi on the street for
Yeah.
the fuel economy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
those are things that us Mopar guys today would say, why couldn't we have got the bigger package?
But just think about it. Yeah, a lot of maintenance and fuel and just the whole thing. It was probably like another $1,000 option to buy a Hemi.
I think it
And,
was I think it was $700.
Okay.
Is what that I think is what he said it was at that time.
Insane.
And you know, that was 3941 out the door with the way it's spec'd.
Right.
And an automatic transmission was more money than a 4-speed,
Right.
right? Like $300-400 maybe
Could be.
than a 4-speed transmission back in the day.
That's crazy because everybody wants a 4-speed.
I know. I feel somewhat inferior with a column shift automatic
Yeah.
in that nice a car, but
It's comfortable to drive. It really is.
still gets a lot of thumbs up.
I mean, rolling through the gears is fun and everything for the sporty factor of it.
It is.
But at the end of the day, it's nice to drive an automatic. You just pull up to a stop sign and just forget about it.
Well, I took Kevin Yoder's when Tim McDowell got that done, and Joe, I went down to Kevin's one day and he said, let's go to Kelowna and you're driving. So I got in his B and I went, he had a pistol grip and I thought, my God, this is nice. Well, you know, you start shifting it, it's all nice and everything, but every time you stop, you have to start all over.
Yep.
Or I'm so used to just leaving that old girl in drive.
Yeah.
Or, you know, once in a while down First Avenue, I might drop her down to Second and let her cackle a little bit on First
Right,
Avenue and Cedar
right.
Rapids. But yeah, I like the automatic.
Right. Right.
I wish, if anything, Darrell would have got buckets and a console shift.
Sure.
That would have been sportier. But again, when him and Judy bought this as a family car, their daily driver, that's why I realized that the way it's spec'd.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's a good drive-in movie theater car too. A bench seat, column
Yeah.
shift, nothing in between.
Nope.
So
Let's get comfortable and let's enjoy the movie.
yeah, yeah. So the two things that I have to get done yet is we're going to take it to Marty at Linder's and get the alignment done.
Yep.
And then the kickdown does work. I have it adjusted pretty good, but I'm going to tighten it up a little bit because when you stomp on the gas, you have to like put it clear to the floor.
You do.
And so I want to tighten it up a little bit more so you don't
Okay.
have to like totally smash it to the floor to
Okay.
get it to kick down.
That's on the linkage of the carburetor.
Yep. I just gotta basically just extend the rod a little bit so
Okay.
it'll activate or engage sooner.
And the choke too, Keith? Did
Yep,
you
I
tighten that?
adjusted that.
Okay.
So I like it. Yeah.
Good. Good.
Is there any other like history of the car, like significant? Like we went through deratio, we went through when you bought it. Is there any like significant memory? Like, did you ever race it against anybody?
Well,
or
Never really raced against. We never really raced against each other down there in Wellman, Kelowna. Our big thing, of course, that was the talk of the school back when I bought that car because nobody had a Dodge Super B in that era.
Right.
There was muscle. There was some Camaros. There was, there was what's his name? Stump Kid had a Roadrunner, a red
Okay.
Roadrunner, a 383. That was a 4-speed car.
Okay.
He was a couple of years ahead of me, but it was kind of a unique car
right?
in Dodgeville down there. That was very
Yeah.
unique, and so I take it across. There was a bridge out north of Wellman on Ginkgo Avenue, went across the English River, and we'd see how fast I could get her going from one end to the other end.
Okay.
And then, you know, I don't know, I can't remember what, 4 or 5 seconds it got across that bridge. And I'd burned the tires, obviously.
Right.
I had, initially it came with those Firestone red wall, those poly glass belted tires. You could just turn those like there's no tomorrow.
Right. Nothing like the radials nowadays.
No.
Something was just melt down.
And then I put, so then after I put those off, took those wheels off, I wanted to go with Anson Sprints.
Oh, yeah.
So the Eckery boys out in Cosgrove were second cousins of my first cousin. So I went out there and got to know them, and I bought a set of Anson Sprints, ordered 6-inch Anson Sprints polished for the front, and I put 10-inch deep dish on the back with M50s. And then I had to put Gabriel Hijacker
shocks on it,
to get that rear end up enough over those wheel wells.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh, that was a mean looking car.
So that was 75-ish or
74-ish.
74.
74-ish.
Okay.
And I ran that through high school with those big meats on it.
Yep.
And of course, it had always had the dual exhaust under it, and I don't know if those had MagnaFlows or whatever, but I recently, probably 2015, put Flowmaster Super 44s on this one up at Denny's in Cedar Rapids, and I had them put Super 40s on the Monte Carlo
Okay.
with that 350, and it's really got a nice sound to it.
Yeah.
And so probably the biggest event with this car in Wellman was the last day of high school at Mid Prairie. We were all doing burnouts. We were going to do them at underneath where the shop class is at. Study hall was above, and then down below there was really smooth cement, very smooth, no texture to it at all. And Bob Lynn took some bleach and some oil and got his 57.
Oh my God.
Just smoked. Anyway, that immediately Dean Curtis was the superintendent. And by the way, he was my folks' backyard neighbor. So I knew Dean and he knew me, and he said, Scott, if you want to do yours, take her out on 22 and do it.
But not at school. Yeah.
During school,
my
everybody's in study hall looking out the glass.
Oh,
of
yeah.
us seniors doing burnouts out there.
Oh, yeah.
So I took it out on 22, got down to the driveway, and I thought, okay, it's showtime, girl.
Right.
Put her into first, and I put the old power brake on her, and I just, limo M50 started turning, and I could see it was smoking, and I said, well, I better get going now. Went into Wellman. Got her shot across, and everybody was all, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yep.
The smoke show on that car.
Yep. I remember I went to City High and I graduated in '88, and yeah, if someone had a loud car outside, you could hear it.
Yes.
You know, because the old schools with the thin windows and stuff like that,
Yep.
you could hear when someone with a pickup truck or a car went through the parking lot. And,
Exactly.
And I could imagine like all the kids like, what's going on? And like right in the middle of history class or math class, they'd probably run to the window to look outside.
And I did put headers on this. I forgot to mention that. When I got it, I first got it, I took the engine, I kind of messed up, but I know that was kind of what it was in the day. I thought it'd be cool to have the engine bay painted black from the top of the fender down to the sides. Well, I couldn't get Q5 spray cans at Hartwig's to do, because I was going to do that whole engine bay. So I kind of painted that black, but the engine I kind of painted it the best I could with spray cans, masked everything off, and it looked pretty damn cool. And then I thought, well, this isn't complete without some headers. So Eckery's got me some headers for it, appliance headers. I remember they were white, and then Dad and I took that thing out. We had to jack the one side of the motor up and take the starter out to get them damn headers in there. And Dad says, "Are you sure this is really what you wanted to do?" And I said, "Well,
a lot of work, right?"
Yeah, a lot of work. And of course, Keith, we didn't have floor hoists like you got here.
You just did it on the gravel driveway or whatever.
Or in the garage. We did it in the garage, but of course, we had a nice jack, and we had jack stands, and then we had to jack the one that had loose the motor mount on that left side, and had to take that starter out to get that header to fit down in there. And of course, eventually, when I was ready to repaint this in '95, that's when I took the headers off of it, and I saved the exhaust manifolds. And
That's good that you saved those.
We planed those off and they bolted right up to the heads.
Yep.
And
So you painted the engine bay black. That's what I do with my Barracuda also.
Yep.
And you see it all the time. Mopar guys.
yeah,
See, that's the thing about the Chrysler products is they painted the engine bays the body color.
yes,
And you know, Mustangs, Camaros, just everything had a black engine bay.
exactly.
And so the Chryslers, like you just imagine the whole car is just dipped in paint.
Yep.
And so
Exactly.
we always painted our engine bays black.
I
It was
know
just
it.
a thing to do, and you still see cars today, old cars from old school,
Yep.
where the engine bay is black.
You're
It
right
was
at
just-
the fenders, right at
yeah.
the top of the fender.
Yep.
I masked that off and I painted it a gloss black.
Yeah.
I painted it a gloss black and it looked cool. And then, the back of the firewall, though, I kept that turquoise. I
Oh,
never
did ya?
touched that. It was just those inner fenders is what I painted black. And then, of course, I got Hemi orange and I painted the best I could the manifold and the valve covers. I never
Yep.
really got down underneath on the head side
Yeah.
and everything. It looked good. It really looked good.
And that's when we could go down to like Mr. G's or the parts store and just buy gloss black or
Exactly.
buy Hemi orange.
Well,
or
Dad had the
something.
hardware store, so I could have an unlimited amount of paint. I
Sure.
mean, he had, back in the day, it was Gamble's, and he went to Do It Best. So, I mean, I had all kinds of spray paint available.
Sure.
But I did go to Paul's to get undercoating, because that was the next
Okay.
thing. Terry Tadlock, his dad had the Texaco station. So we thought we'd undercoat that, which you saw the underside. We did put some undercoating underneath there. And then we painted the rear end and the front end with spray paint. We masked that car all off in paper, and we just kind of spray painted.
Gloss black?
Gloss black.
Okay. No wild colors or nothing?
No,
I remember, you still see same thing. You still see people that would have painted their differential like orange or yellow or something. I've seen orange transmissions, and it's just something, you like, hey, what am I going to do with this spray can? Well, let's paint something on
Yep.
the car just to be
Exactly.
different. Yeah.
yeah, no, I wanted to keep it somewhat original and
Yeah.
making it look good like that. And
Yeah. Did you ever have like chrome valve covers or anything on it?
I
or-
did put after that. Then I thought, well, I need to outdress this engine up a little bit. So I bought a set of Mickey Thompson's
Okay.
valve covers, ribbed. They're polished aluminum valve cover, and it looked nice on there.
Right.
But I ended up selling those because when I then went back to before I painted this thing at Dean's, I wanted the engine and everything to be back original.
Nice.
So I think Don Schilling up at Schilling's there in Cedar Rapids, I had him do the brakes on it for me one time because they were getting down there.
Sure.
The brakes were like, I don't even had 20% brake linings left. And Norm had noted that because Daryl had drove it 63,000 miles, probably never changed the brakes.
Yeah.
So I knew I needed a new brake system on it. And then Don Schilling, I don't know if you ever remember him. He's right there on Edgewood Road before Aldi's. Anyway, he was a super mechanic, and he found these Mopar orange valve covers. We stuck those back on.
Yeah.
And then we put put the drum brakes on it, redid that, and that was about the only thing I did was just those valve covers. I kind of dressed it up.
Right. Did you ever have traction bars on it? Or
Never
just,
did
Just
that.
the air shocks.
Just the air shocks.
Yep. Yep. So one thing that a lot of people don't know about is that Chrysler products have what they call a pinion snupper, and that's that bracket on top of the differential where it will come up and hit the floor, and it basically acts like a traction bar. So that's
Really?
putting traction bars on Chryslers really wasn't necessary because they're born with the pinion snubber.
I see.
Yep. Yep.
Would that
So-
car have it on there?
Yeah,
I mean,
every
they're all
every
cars-
single Chrysler product was born with the pinion snubber, so you didn't need traction bars. In fact,
Wow.
oh, do you know this guy? His name is Tom Tiedemann or Daryl Tiedemann. Anyway, he owns a Cuda, and he called me up the other day, and he wanted to know why the U-joint was hitting the bottom of the floor when he stepped on it. And I said, hey, he's like, do I need traction bars? And I asked him, I says, go out and look and see if you have a pinion snubber. He didn't even know what that was. And he took a picture of it, and I'm like, no, you don't even have a pinion snubber on there.
No wonder.
So yeah, I said, just put that on.
So when
and
that
don't-
rear end lifts up, when you hit it,
when the springs wrap up,
Wrap
the
up.
the drive shaft can actually hit the floor.
oh my.
So yeah, pinion snubbers.
Yeah, there was just like a rubber like a grommet type
Well,
thing.
just a big thick rubber bumper,
Bumper.
and then it's mounted right where the drive shaft goes into the differential.
Okay.
And it's just a big heavy duty bracket.
Yeah.
And when the rear end wraps up, it hits the bottom of the floor.
Keeps it down. Yeah.
Yep. So just air shocks and Ansons. What happened to them wheels?
So then again, the stage of life.
Yeah.
I get a little older, and I think, well, the big wheels and tires, those look good in the day, but I want to go back to kind of an original tire. So my Goodyear dealership, who I trade with up there in Cedar Rapids, Westside Tire, I said, there was a kid up there that had a CUDA. Tom was his name, and he wanted those wheels for his CUDA. And I said, well, that's funny you want them, because I'm going to sell them, and I'm
Right.
going to get some regular BF Goodrich radial tires on this thing. I'm going to bring it back to more of a driving car.
Right.
So I bought, these were an aluminum, they're 14-inch wheels on this car, and that's what it was born with.
Yeah.
I sometimes wished I would have went up to a 15-inch wheel, and I might still do that, but I've always kept 14s on it, kind of the original stance
Right.
look. So anyway, I went and got these directional wheels at Westside Tire. They're an aluminum wheel with like directional cutouts
Right.
with black paint inside the little markings, and I thought, them look really good. So we put radial tires and directional wheels all the way around.
Once again, that was in the mid 90s, though.
That would have been probably early 90s before I painted it.
Okay.
I put those in, yeah. Probably
Okay.
late 80s, early 90s, I want to say I did that
Right,
switch.
right. So that type of wheel was kind of a new thing at the
Yeah.
time. So it was kind of like the hot
Yes.
wheel to get, and now they just look like they're just dated.
They're just too flat.
Yeah, yeah.
Torque thrust or Magnums. I did try to buy a set of Magnums. I can't remember, vintage wheels. I bought a set of vintage wheels, and of course I told my guys at Westside Tire I was going to do this, and he said, well, bring them in, we'll mount them on tires for you. Well, these vintage wheels, I remember they had some leaks around the seams that we wouldn't hold air. And of course, I thought, well, I can't have this, which really surprised myself and the guys at Westside Tire, why this thing would be leaking, these wheels would be leaking the way they were.
So just the welds were crap or something.
Yep.
Oh wow.
So I said, well, I'm going to box these up. I told Vintage Wheels, they sent them back. They took care of them, refunded my money. And that's when I had Westside Tire get me those torque thrusts.
Okay.
Those are 14.7s
Okay.
all the way around.
All right. And they're pretty much not quite exactly like Brian's.
Yeah.
So his is more of a straight cut spoke.
Yep.
And then yours kind of has like a rounded or
Bevel?
fatter
Yeah.
spoke to it.
Yeah.
But
He's got bigger ones on the back, doesn't he? He's got like 8-inch, and those are 15-inch wheels.
yeah, but no, it's a good looking wheel, and it's kind of timeless.
It
It
is.
fits. Yeah.
If I had it to change over, I'd probably maybe put Magnums under it, because that is the vintage
Right.
year of when you could put Magnums. I mean, those Magnums do look really nice on a car.
They
like
do. It'd be cool to see it with those original hubcaps
The
too.
hubcaps.
Yeah.
Keith, here's another thing. Back in 70s, we didn't have cameras on phones. We didn't have phones like that. We just
Right.
had Polaroid type cameras
Right.
or Brownings. So I didn't get a lot of pictures of that car when I bought it with those hubcaps and those red
Right.
line tires. But I remember it very vividly.
But the first thing you did was
It looked too much of an old man's car, in
Yeah,
my opinion, with those old
hubcaps, I mean,
Dodge hubcaps.
right. No one had hubcaps.
But I've seen them. I've seen them in magazines where that car
Yep.
with those hubcaps. But I don't know if you can even buy those. I've looked on.
It'd be a swap meet thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a swap meet, and they would have had them on all Cornettes and Dodge Charger too.
Yep.
Yep.
You know what they look like? They were round, stamped, and they had like black implants in the middle, and then they had the center cap was stamped, and it had Dodge. It like a finned or a turbo type hubcap is what it looked kind of like.
Right.
It was good looking hubcap in that regards,
Right.
especially with the red line tires.
Yeah.
That was just offset that. But then in that era, you need to put wheels on it.
Oh yeah, I had slotted mags on mine.
Absolutely.
I had a set of rallies, and I painted them gold.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't, same thing. I had spray paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just change something. I remember I had those gold anodized Moroso valve covers,
Yes.
and I had a set of Holly valve covers,
Oh my
the
goodness.
raised aluminum ribs,
Yep.
and I painted those blue to match the paint on the car.
Ooh.
Chrome air cleaner, of course,
Oh
and
yeah.
you get the chrome air breathers and
Yep.
the headers, and
That was the thing.
paint the engine bay black. And
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. That's got the ram charger, so I always kept that, ram charger system underneath it.
that's great that you kept all that, because it's valuable and it's all original to the
Well,
car.
my buddy Kevin Yoder down there at Kelowna or Wellman at Home Gas with that Super Bee, he's got hood scoops just like mine, but he doesn't have a ram charger underneath that hood.
Okay.
And I said, "Are you going to get one?" And he said, "If I can find one, yeah,
Yeah,
I'd love
yeah.
to have one."
Yeah, Tim actually, I think it was even last year, I was at the Minnesota swap meet, which is next weekend.
Yep, that's right.
He had messaged me and wanted me to find one, and they're available. You just got to be ready to pay,
Well,
because you can buy a really crappy one for $800-900, or you can buy a really nice one for like a couple $1,000.
well, it's funny you
So-
mentioned that. So when I was down last week, and Kevin and I went to Kelowna to look at this Fairlane down at Joe's shop, and he has he's got some beautiful cars down there, but we took his SRT V10 Dodge pickup down with a 6-speed with a
Yeah.
big V10 engine in it, that Viper. He's got two of those, one an automatic and one a 6-speed.
Oh shit.
So I said, I sent you a text from the that American that catalog, Classic Auto.
Okay.
Well, in the catalog, it had a picture of that ram charger system under the hood. Well, he claims that catalog is an old catalog because Classic Auto doesn't even have those now.
Or Classic Industries.
Or Classic Industries.
Got it,
That's
yeah.
the one. Because I'd got, the mirror for this and the trunk mat. And then, of course, they sent me this big Mopar catalog.
Right.
700 and some pages
Yeah,
thick.
it's a thick encyclopedia
I thought,
kind of thing.
what the hell? So I went through it and I found that air grabber system. But I sent it to Chuck and he says, well, that they don't carry that anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought, well,
I want to make sure this is still.
okay, if that's the case.
Yeah. Oh, we're still doing good here.
Okay.
I was like, man, I hope that thing's still recording. But yeah, we can edit out whatever.
Okay.
So,
that's good. Yeah, I don't want to get too talkative, but yet
No,
it's
and we're
really flowing
we're gonna
good,
go.
Keith.
Yeah, we're gonna go drive it. So I wanted to kind of tell you. I looked up some facts about the car. It doesn't break it down to like, it's not like a Ford with a Marty report. So
Okay.
Chrysler doesn't have very complete records on how many cars were built, of what color and what transmission and everything like that. But I did do some research and broke it down, and the fender tag is very basic. So first of all, it's a G code St. Louis build car. Okay. So like you said, it was built in Missouri.
Yep.
So it was definitely, G stands for St. Louis, 3D3 727 torque flight, and Q5 turquoise with black interior. It was built December 11th, okay? Or no, wait, no, October,
69.
November. No, November 11th, sorry, November 11th. Came with the left side remote mirror, power drum brakes.
Yep.
All Super Bs kind of come standard, but they put it on the fender tag. So A62 is rally gauges, and then the N85 for the tachometer.
Yep.
Okay.
The tic tac, right? It's
right.
got the tack and the
Yep.
clock.
Yep. And with the N96 Air Grabber system with the big oval air cleaner, by default you get 3-speed wipers because the 2-speed wiper doesn't fit with that big air cleaner.
Yeah.
So it's coded for 3-speed wipers, which it still has. It has the A01 basic light package. So A01 is the basic light package, which means like map light, trunk light, glove box light, stuff like that. Let's see. So
And he
basic.
spec'd that out with Norm. He came
Yeah.
into his office and he
Yep.
said, I want this,
Yep.
this, and this.
Yep, and
for
then
the
like we
car.
talked earlier, the A31 is a Super Track Pack 8 3/4 391 gear. So it has that.
And that explains why that's got a 26-inch radiator and Brian only has a 22-inch.
Right,
in
right,
that
and
one.
it also has a power steering cooler. So with
Oh,
the
power
Super Track Pack, it automatically gets a power steering cooler.
Is
Okay,
that because
that's
of
what that little radiator thing on the side of the power
Yep.
steering. That's
that
a
little fins, those
that's the
fins?
power steering cooler.
And that justifies bigger radiator based on all that extra
Right,
cooling.
extra heavy duty cooling. Yep. Let's see. So that. Oh, and then the VX1 for the black vinyl top,
Like vinyl top,
and then the V88 for Stripe Delete.
stripe delete.
So anyway, you kind of break that all down.
Yeah.
As far as now, I use Galen Govier's White Books, or GTS is Galen's tag service. So I use his books,
Yeah.
and it's one of the most complete systems or ways to document your car. Broke it down to where there are, in 1969, there are 3,695 post or WM21. Okay,
Yep.
so WM23 is a two-door hardtop, but the 21 is the post, and so there's 3,695 of those built.
Wow.
Now, when you start to break it down, it doesn't break it down into colors or stripe delete or super track pack with or without and stuff like that. So with the color, Seafoam Turquoise was probably a more rare color
Yeah.
than like a green.
Yeah.
You know, they had like 3 different shades of green.
Right.
And then what are some other, obviously black and silver
The
and
reds,
red.
the what's the F2, the blue?
Well, they had a B5. They had
B5.
a B3, B5, and B7.
Yeah.
So you had 3 different shades of blue. You had grays and stuff like that. So if you take that, you could easily say that your car is like maybe one of 1,000, maybe. I'm sure they made several Seafoam Turquoise automatics.
You don't see as many though, do you?
Not
Keith?
at
I mean,
all.
all the years you've been doing this,
Right,
and in the pictures
right.
I see, especially online today, that seafoam green is very unique.
Yep.
It is a
yep.
very unique
Yeah, you'll
color.
see a lot more blues and reds before you see that Seafoam Turquoise. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, Brian's car is actually born green. Even though it's red, it was born green.
It was born green.
Yep. So I've never seen it. There's no fender tag on the car, but he says he has like a partial build sheet of it, and they verified it that was born green.
Interesting.
So not red.
But this was the guy before him in Tennessee that apparently painted that car?
Yeah. So Tennessee guy owned it, sold it to Southern Motors, which is weird that it says Southern Motors because they're out of Michigan. And then Mark Adams bought it. We worked on it. And then Brian bought it from Duffy's.
Duffy's, yep.
Yeah, so that car has been owned by a lot of people. Wow. Yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah, he said that.
And then they said the guy in Tennessee rebuilt the engine. Ends up the engine was completely worn out, and so he's had a lot of updates to that car.
Yeah.
So
Decoded digital gauges.
digital gauges,
That's a
now
big money.
AC, fuel tank, and we did the power disc brake conversion on it.
Oh yeah.
Different intake and just tons of stuff. So we
Yep.
just put the rear window in it last year.
Looks really nice. Really nice.
yeah.
And he's got that. There's a name for that hood drop. That scoop.
I just call it a power bulge hood.
Power bulge hood.
Sometimes they might just call it a performance hood.
Well, another thing that I liked on his car, and he said the reason he's got them is those turn signal indicators. I said, I'd like to have them on the Super Bee. But he said,
right.
you have Ram Charger on that. You couldn't get those turn signal indicators on a Ram Charger hood. Is that?
I don't know. So the fender mounted turn signals, the code would be L31, but I don't know for a fact. Maybe someone in the comments could tell us.
Yeah.
Can you get the fender mounted turn signals with the N96 Air Grabber Hood? I don't know. Maybe you can't see. I'd have to sit in the car. Maybe you can't see that right front fender over the hood scoop.
Well, that's true.
That might be.
That's true where he
Yeah.
can see.
He can see his
power bulge hood.
Right. So
I could see that, Keith. But they do add character.
a little bit, yeah.
They do
Yeah,
add-
it's a unique thing. I don't know what other makes and model of car have them. Do you have anything to add? Because we kind of went through my bullet points. I wanted to talk about like when you bought it, who owned it, the family history, what the car is, 3D3 automatic car.
Yep.
Talked about the storm damage. We talked about the guys that have worked on it.
Yep.
We talked kind of about the specs of the car, and there's 3,600 of them made.
3,600.
But like I said, that doesn't break it down into colors or anything.
Yeah, because I
So,
remember trying to go on looking to see how many of these were made in '69 with Q5 color. And it said there was like 25 or 27,000 Coronet Super Bs made. Now, is that, Keith, in '69, or is that was for that '69 year was 3,600 cars made
right.
at
So
Fenton, Missouri?
it breaks it down, and that's the other thing. It doesn't break it down into plants, because
Ah,
they would have made these in Hamtramck, Michigan.
yeah,
They made them at Lynch Road, Michigan, and then they made them in St. Louis.
yep,
Okay, so these cars are built all over the place, and so it doesn't break down which factory it was made, and
I
it doesn't
see.
break it down into the specific packages or color. And in some makes and models, they do have like a pie chart. So imagine like a big round pie chart, and let's say, 25% of them were blue, and then the
Yeah,
really small sliver of them were silver
yeah.
and turquoise. So there's just a percentage of the cars known that exist, what the colors
Well,
are.
like, so our friend Greg Winters from Wellman has that black, beautiful AAR that you built
Yep,
with a white interior.
right.
That's one of 13 or 15 made,
So and
supposedly?
this is just what's known to exist. So there's 40 black AARs known to exist.
40.
Out of the 40 black AARs, there are 14 with white interior,
White
and
interior.
out of that, you split it up between 4 speeds and automatics.
Okay.
And then when you split it into automatics, there's actually floor shift automatic, and then there's column shift bench seat automatic.
Ah,
Okay, so it can break it down into more. So his car is like one of 10, or who
oh,
knows exactly, with
beautiful.
those exact options. And
Absolutely.
then just like any car, they build them in sets or groups.
Yeah.
So your car may have been built with a group of 10 or 20 others in Seafoam Turquoise, because they're not just
Ah,
going to spray one color and
right.
stop. They're gonna build a whole group of cars in a color, and then,
Exactly.
okay, like, okay, it's Thursday, we're gonna paint all turquoise cars, and then the next day they're gonna switch to paint all blue cars or whatever.
Exactly.
And so whether it's a station wagon, a 4-door, a 2-door hardtop, or a 2-door coupe,
Wow.
all the cars that go through are going to be painted, one color in a group.
Exactly. And in
So,
those days, I think I've read in those days they actually had painters on the line that were spraying,
yep, just humans, no
but
robots. Yeah.
no dipping in the tank. Like some of these cars were dunked in the tank, and then the electro process would make the paint stick to the body.
So the cars were dipped in the pre-paint process. So when the car was in bare metal,
Yep,
all welded together and everything, they dipped it to clean the car like an acid dip.
yep.
And then it went through a like a 2-step primer stage.
Okay.
Okay, so it would get acid dipped, then rinsed, and then it would go into primer once or twice or
Wow.
whatever. And then once the primer was dry, then it would go to paint. And then the primer, the final primer or sealer and paint process was done by people.
People, two
Yep,
guys
yep. So
who just
that's why
go,
these cars in still modern cars do the same process. That's why these cars have like, 50 holes in the bottom where the rubber plugs are.
yeah,
Those are drain holes.
drain holes for
Yep,
that product.
yep. So when the car was run through, they ran it through and dipped it, and then all that stuff was to drain out.
Drained out.
But they dip it so all the insides would totally be submerged into paint.
Wow. So
Yep.
it was that's very protected on the inside of the doors,
For the
the
most
bodies.
part, I mean, just keep in mind too, it was very thin.
Yeah.
When we restore cars or you got yours repainted, it's way
Yeah.
better than the factory. And still today, they put the very least amount of paint on a car that they can, because it's money savings,
Yeah.
and they don't care if the car lasts more than 5 or
That's
10
probably,
years.
yeah.
So the quicker the paint rusts or burns off and the car starts to rust out, then they get to sell a new car.
Yep.
So they would have
My
put the
God.
very least amount of paint on the
And
car.
those were back in the day when it was lacquer. Those were all lacquer paint,
It's all acrylic enamel.
acrylic enamel back then.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then they didn't have a clear coat on them. It
Not
was
at all.
just pure. That's why
Acrylic
you had to
enamel.
wax these cars to keep them shiny
Right.
and keep them protected, because there was there was no clear coats on them.
Right, right. So just acrylic enamel, or another way to say it is single stage paint.
Yeah.
So modern day cars are sprayed with base coat, clear coat.
Yeah.
So it's like a 2-stage.
Right.
But back then it was just a single stage acrylic enamel.
I think when Jim painted this, he told me, because this thing was down to bare metal. I mean, it was like, my God, it's about as natural as you're ever going to see the car,
Right.
down to the bare metal. Then he primed it, and then he puts, I think, 3 coats of Q5 or the Q5 paint, and then he put 4 coats of clear on that thing. It's really got good depth, clarity to the paint
Yep.
with that. So, yeah.
All right, man. Well, that kind of, I think that does it for just talking about it. I think it's time to get in it and take it for a drive. So you haven't driven it. You haven't driven it for like 2 years almost.
Haven't driven it for 2 years almost. Yep,
yeah.
it'd be November.
Yeah. All right.
I think I
So,
can still get her
So
started.
we're in May of 2025, and you said it was 23. November.
November of 23.
November of 23 is
Late
when we
November,
pulled the
I brought
heads.
it up.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And I said, well, it's been in great hands, and I just said, you know what? It's worth the wait to get it done right the first time. And that's why I really appreciate you taking this project on,
Thanks for
Keith.
trusting me with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely.
We'll just talk about the car a little bit and what we've done.
Okay.
Everything is stuff that you've been wanting for years.
Yeah. My wish list.
Right, your wish list.
Getting up to date there.
All right. So yeah, it was interesting talking about how this engine bay used to have some black in it.
Right. From those fenders down.
Okay.
But the back of the firewall was always turquoise. I never touched that. I just masked it off. And then even this was all, of course, we took the engine and everything out, so that's when we repainted it. Everything got a fresh coat of Q5 in the bay, in the trunk, inside the doors. I mean, the doors were taken off. It was close to a rotisserie job you could get without flipping the car over.
Right. Yeah. The bottom of the car is still very original.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had the front end reworked when Don Schilling, he's put tie rods and ball joints, and I think you checked it over, and it's
Everything is really tight, so just new spindles and rotors and calipers on it
Yeah.
now. I did notice that your reservoir is all original.
yes.
So you've managed to not break it
Yes.
in anything over the years. So that thing is still the original washer tank.
Exactly. And I don't know, the West Side Tire guys put some, I should maybe drain that out, because I don't
It actually has fluid in there, though. They always leak.
They always leak.
They always leak, and that's amazing that it's
So
not
is it
leaking.
best to keep some fluid in it? You
Just
think, Keith?
leave it, yeah, because without fluid in it, then that seal around the pump will dry out, and then that thing will leak for sure.
Well, how about my wiper motor? I've seen you take pictures and talk about people paint those gold, and that's a 3-speed wiper
Right,
motor.
yeah, they look real cheesy when you paint them.
And those are all original components there. I mean, all the wiring harnesses,
Yeah, that's crazy.
is that, and you checked it, my gauges and everything seemed
Everything
to be,
seems to work, yeah. So here's something. How long have you been wanting a passenger mirror? Is that something you've always thought about?
kind of thought about it. And when I was on the interstate, when I was bringing it back, I was trying to look over, because I used the rear view mirror.
Yep.
There's always a blind spot over here.
Right.
And then I started seeing these on cars, and I thought, well, it's not original, because I'm a purist.
Yeah.
But yet and you even said it, if it's a safety thing,
Why not?
why not? Just
Right.
like disc brakes on this.
Yeah.
Upgraded.
So, and they make really nice reproductions.
Oh.
So it looks just exactly like the other mirror.
It
So
does.
it's a good compliment on the whole car.
It sure does, Keith. It's
But yeah, where was that dent? Was that on the? It was
Right
right,
up in here.
Yep.
Right
so it
in
had
here.
a big, and that's where the garage door fell.
right. Garage door there, and then on the back of the trunk, there was. Well, I could pull my pictures up.
I do
and
want
show you
those pictures. Yeah.
This trunk was just, like right in this seam here, where the garage door, there was sections that was down to bare metal.
The door was just
Grounded right down to the bare metal.
waving back and forth in the wind,
Yep.
and that derecho. If a lot of the Midwest got that storm, that was you're lucky. Yeah, you're lucky it wasn't worse.
The sides. I mean, I looked down the sides and I thought, how can this be with so much damage back here, and the wind's whipping through that garage,
Yeah.
and crap that could have blown through there? But it was a miracle of God. These sides are all, they weren't touched.
And this is the 1995 paint,
95 paint.
except for where Riley painted the back of it.
I think Riley took it from here and blended it along this seam.
Yep.
This is all new up here, and then he did the back of the trunk lid. He
Right.
did repaint that, but everything else is all 1995
Yeah.
Dean Miller, Jim Lefevre paint, and all original interior. I did have this reupholstered, I think at McFalls in Iowa City.
Okay.
Daryl must have sat in this. There was a little bit of a tear here, and he tried to put that cheesy vinyl repair glue on it, and it was
Right.
like, well, you got it, might as well just left it alone.
Yeah.
So I took it to McFalls and had them put a new, they reupholstered that seat.
Now, I think we reused the headliner, didn't we?
You did?
Yeah, we just pulled it down with a really gentle.
I told you, I said, well, if you think it can be repaired, or do we just replace it? Because, you know, those things get dry and brittle.
Right, the threads start to pull apart, but yeah, we were able to reuse it. Of course, a new vinyl top, because once you peel the vinyl top off, them things are just garbage.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't
And I
do
love
that.
this design.
Yep.
What do they call that?
A boar grain.
Boar grain.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just what it was born with, too.
Yep.
That was the same grain on that
Yep.
vinyl top.
In the old Dodge Herzog.
Yep.
Fretzog.
Fretzog.
Yeah, that's what
There's
they
one
call
on
that.
both sides.
Yep. Yep. So.
Exactly.
So all original door panels, and this is still original. This has
Original.
never been repainted.
Never.
Wow. Yep. Yep. And
You,
just shuts super nice. But yeah, there's that driver's side mirror. That's what the car was born with.
that was what born with,
Yep.
and I couldn't. Now we re-chromed the bumpers. We put
Okay.
new glass in when we painted it. We put
Yeah.
a new windshield. I think we did do a new window in the back.
Was it new?
Maybe not. Maybe we left that. That's all original glass, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, you know what, Keith, that
That might be original there.
might be original glass.
No, it's been replaced.
So then,
yeah, they're right there. It just has the PPG lettering, so that's
Okay.
been replaced. So otherwise, it'd have the Chrysler Pentastar and a Decode.
okay.
So that's PPG glass.
Then
so
we
that
did
is
that
new.
when we repainted
Okay.
it. Then
Okay.
that didn't get broken, believe it or not, with that garage door.
Yeah.
Because I had Riley look at that, and you know, I'm pretty impressed that it's, of course, again, this many years of tender, loving care in a garage covered with a car cover.
Right. All right. Well, we're gonna take this for a drive. Let's pull it outside here.
Perfect. Appreciated in value since then. Like,
Right.
would anything of this thing could have done like a console shift and buckets? Would it have made any more value to this car than just a bench seat with a column shift?
Yeah. I mean, this is pretty much as basic as they get.
Yeah.
I mean, it does have power drum brakes. It could have just come with regular manual drum brakes and manual steering. So it is a little bit of an upgrade from absolute basic stock.
Right.
Like Brian's car over there, like we talked, that thing, 4-speed, manual drum brakes. I mean, that 22-inch radiator, it's more cool now because of a 4-speed.
Right.
But back when the car was built, it was actually cheaper than your car.
It was cheaper than my car.
Yeah,
Because
because
the 4-speed would have been cheaper than an automatic.
right, and then the 22-inch radiator, so not a track pack car.
Wonder what that car would have cost new. $3,400?
No, not even
Not
that.
even that. Mine was
That's
30.
comparable to the cheapest Roadrunner, so that would have been like $2,800.
Do you want me to get the build sticker out so you can show it on the video?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
But right now, why don't you go ahead and jump in it?
Okay.
I think if you just pump it once,
Pump it once.
and you might have to give it a rev or something, but
Okay.
it's all brand new for you. It's going to run and fire up for you though.
Won't have to adjust how to start it compared to what I used to have to
Right.
start.
So just pull it out here and we'll let it warm up a little bit.
Okay.
right.
I'll get her cranked up here.
Oh yeah, that starts right up.
Boy, he sounds nice. Should I? He's got a nice sound to her, doesn't he?
It starts nice.
Oh, he does. Better than it did before.
I love stock cars. You know, I'm all for like hot rods and big lopey cams and stuff,
Right.
but anymore, they really run good when they're just stock.
That's the way they were built.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were built for performance in their day.
Yeah, but
That Magnum engine.
But the engineers knew what they were doing. They know how to make it idle.
Oh,
But man, when you get up to 50 mile an hour, these things, you stomp it down to second gear, they go like a bat out of hell. Yep.
and then of course trim rings. This I had
Yeah,
Joe
wheel
Schwartz-
and molding. Yep.
wheel moldings. I had him replace those, which I gave you the old ones. They were in pretty good shape,
Okay.
but the rear wheels here, over the years, you could see there was some wear on them.
Right.
So Joe replaced those. Here's one too, Keith. This Pentastar. Why did Chrysler only make one side with that?
For curb appeal.
Is that all that was?
Yep, yep. Because people would see the car going down the road, and they didn't need one on the left side. They just put it on the right side for curb appeal.
I
Yep.
always wondered that.
Yep.
Because I always wanted to have one on the driver's side.
Right. No.
It would ruin the authenticity of the car.
Right, right. You'll see kind of misnomer if you get a Ford or a Chevy guy that restores a Chrysler,
Yeah.
they'll put a Pentastar on both sides to make it match, you know. And for Chrysler product, it's passenger side only,
God, that's
or
amazing.
curbside only.
Curbside only.
Curbside only on the
That
Pentastar.
was a
Yep.
marketing thing.
Yep.
My
Yep.
God.
It's to show class. So
Yeah.
I don't know, little gold medallion there.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd like to see on both sides because it adds a lot of swag to the car.
Yep.
But
That's the Chrysler thing only.
and then
So,
another thing, you see cars with these vent scoops in here on the coronets.
yep.
That car was never. That's where they would have went if you ordered them with the scoops on it, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's like an M53 or something like that. It's just for looks. It's non-functional.
I prefer that look.
Yeah, they kind of stick out,
They
don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yep.
mean, what are they really for? They're nothing but just.
They're just imitation scoops. Yep. Well, let's go for a drive.
Okay.
So when did you put the radio in here?
That would have been probably in the before I painted it. And the story with that is I kept the original AM. It quit working. Sheila wanted to have FM and a CD player, and I took it to Custom Audio there in Cedar Rapids,
Ah.
and they could put this in there, this system in there, and leave this intact. Now I see today you can buy these radios that fit right in there,
Yeah, like a retro radio
retro.
or vintage radio.
Right.
It has the look, but it's all modern technology on the inside.
I thought,
Yep.
well, I've got this thing. They did a great job putting it right over the hump here,
Yep.
over my my
Center hump there.
center
yeah.
hump, and it's an AM FM with a CD player. And so, but I did keep this intact.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I hate to tear this out and try to put a retro radiator in
It
when
works.
this thing still works great.
Well, here's the park right up here.
Okay.
You could turn left and
Turn left into
we'll
the
see,
Herbert Hoover Park
yeah.
here then.
Yep.
Excellent,
So
excellent, Keith.
they got all the flags out here for
Oh
Memorial
man, I
Day.
can feel the difference in these brakes.
Oh yeah.
Holy cow.
Yep. Nice.
I mean, it just
power disc brakes.
power discs. And
Yep.
again, front does most of the braking, so no really
Right.
need to. Oh, do we have a detour? Oh no.
There's just you just take it nice and easy because there's a lot of people walking.
Okay.
And it's just a really kind of a beautiful park back
It
here.
is.
Now they are doing like this whole remodel thing, So we do have some construction here.
Yes.
But this is a great place. I like to bring cars back here for videos and pictures, and especially this time of year, everything's green.
Oh, I know. I've watched many of your videos of
Yep.
cars in this park, and that's why I always figured it was the Herbert Hoover Park in this area.
Right.
It's so scenic to do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Wow. But yeah, now this steering wheel is another thing that's kind of unique. Is this a sport steering wheel? Do we go straight ahead?
just kind of stay to the
is that
right.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the very basic standard wheel.
Okay, very basic. Now they had a wood grain wheel too, didn't they?
Yep, they had a wood grain wheel, and then they also had ones with a different center pad.
Okay.
So yeah, but
wonder
forever that's been the steering wheel that's been in the car, right?
Original.
Original
Never
steering
been
wheel.
touched.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if that's a crack there. I don't think it is.
Yeah.
It's solid though.
Really nice day here at the park. Kind of share this walking path with cars, or this road people share as they do a little walk around. So I come down here and do a lot of videos with cars. In the fall it's really nice too when you get all the trees changing colors. I enjoy, and it gets parked inside all the time.
Yep, I was very fortunate, Dad.
So yeah, original headliner, sun visors, dash pads,
Seats,
you know,
except for this section
except
here.
for that, yeah.
That one, but the
So-
back seats are all original.
Yep.
That's all original. All the door panels. It just amazes me.
Yep. Just
good
out of the
shape.
sun and out of the weather, it makes for a big difference.
Exactly. Got a nice sound to her. Right here, we'll
You can go to the next one.
go on down.
Yeah.
Oh, giddy up. I see what you're saying on the kick down.
I'll adjust it to where it engages faster.
About
but-
3/4 way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could turn left here.
Okay.
Turn around.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, here's Shankers. This is the P&G DC.
Yeah.
I did business with them when they moved out here from Iowa City.
Yeah.
Distribution.
Yep.
We go up here and turn around.
Yep,
then.
you can just come up here and
Okay.
turn around. This is kind of my usual
Yeah.
test drive. However, I don't know who left those black marks, but this definitely wasn't me.
These
Although
black
I
marks.
do that stuff on my own Challenger,
There it is.
but that is not me. So I swear to God, I would, if I did a burnout, I would do a video of it. So that one is not me.
And I just don't have the heart to do that to this old car, even though it could do it.
Absolutely, yep.
I mean, you know, that's the thing. And if you were to do it, you'd probably want to just power brake it a little bit, right?
Yeah, because you know, if you break the car, I'm the guy that has to fix it.
I know it.
And so I'm not into fixing cars anymore unless they need
You
it.
don't need to do
I don't
it.
want to go out and destroy them.
Exactly.
Yep.
I have the same mindset, Keith.
Yep.
I've done it in the past. It'll do it, but why
Right.
do that when
Yeah.
I've put this good money to use through you for improvements, not to tear it up and have it rebuild again. Boy, she drives so nice, though.
Yep.
I mean, when she gets aligned, it'll probably even be better.
Yep, the steering wheel is off maybe just a hair,
Look at that.
but it goes straight.
Oh my God, yes. there's some good admirers, Keith.
Yep.
Did you know them?
No.
I was
no.
gonna say.
You get that
get
all the
that.
time when you drive these kind of cars.
You do. You
Yep.
do. Oh God.
You know?
I love it. Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah, step on it a little bit. Give her the beans. There you go.
Yep. She hit passing. Here comes the motorcycles in fast pursuit. I think I did notice that though. We had to push her all the way to the floor for her to kick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll adjust that a little bit.
And that's there's like a throttle bolt comes up. Is it on the back side of the engine?
Yeah,
where
it's a
that throttle's
threaded rod. Yep.
Yeah. And is there like do you kind of just know about how much to adjust, or will you adjust and then take it out and drive it again?
I'll usually drive it a couple times and make sure it's right.
Get the right.
Yep.
Okay, I'll have to turn left up here.
Yep.
Get them motorcycles. Hopefully they won't follow us in. Okay, here we are right here. Bravo, Keith.
All right.
Very nice.
Yeah, that looks good right there.
Right there, perfect, Keith.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
bravo.
How was that test drive? It went pretty good.
Should I get the build sheet out? Did you want to take a picture of that or not?
Yeah, we could look at it.
Okay, leave the windows down on her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man.
Okay, I'll get
Perfect.
Get the old.
All right. So that's the original window sticker.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Hartwig Motors.
Wow. So pretty much everything right here is on the fender tag.
Yep.
So some of the stuff isn't.
Isn't
So
it?
some of these codes aren't on the fender tag,
Oh.
but for the most part, a lot of them
like the
that
bumper.
you see.
Bumper. What would we put? On
The
there?
bumperettes aren't, the
Bumperettes.
tires, you know, like the V88 and the vinyl top are on the fender tag, but like rear speaker and the steering wheel, those aren't on the fender tag.
The tachometer.
Yep, the N95,
that's all
on there. Yep. But yeah.
And
that's
then you
very
said that was
nice.
born in January or November of 1969.
Mm-hmm.
Would that have showed that on this?
Well, there's our St. Louis assembly plant.
Yep.
I don't know.
And it was damn near $4,000 new.
Brand new, yeah. Yeah, this is great because I grew up in Iowa City.
Yep.
And
You remember Hartwig's where they
absolutely.
were down on Riverside Drive?
Well, you know, the office that I have down there is the lounge from Hartwig Dodge. That glass enclosure is the lounge. And my uncle had the demolition rights to Hartwig Dodge, so that's how I got that.
Isn't one of the Hartwig guys got a shop out here?
Kevin.
Kevin
Hartwig.
Is he still a Dodge guy?
Oh yeah, he has a business where he buys and sells cars. He calls it Heart Tech, I think.
I'd heard that, but
yeah.
I've never met him.
Yep. But this is great. It shows you, you know, all these options, and you know, $25 and $42 for a high performance rear axle. And, and just.
Well, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
How about the radiator? Does it show the big 26-inch radiator, what it cost extra?
Well, that would be in your axle package, I believe.
So it would be the axle then.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be all that for $102 for all that upgrade.
Yeah. Crazy how cheap stuff was, but But
My God, a
that's
radiator.
inflation. Yep. So that's what the car sold for brand new.
Man.
And you said you paid $1,400?
$1,450.
$1,450
with tax. Everything tax out the door.
Yep.
I mean,
And here's the other thing that so Sperry Engines in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
yep.
So every engine he builds for a restoration, he'll do this book, and it's basically just a spec book, and it shows, you know, how everything was balanced out, bearing clearances, the cam card, so you know all the cam specs and everything. And then later on here, he does pictures, you know, during the build, does pictures of boring it and everything. Hot tank. There's the honing plate.
Yep. He showed me that machine that he used up there, the CNC machine.
Yep, here he is doing valve guides and seats and stuff right there.
It's
so you
done
can
right.
see the seats aren't installed yet.
Yep.
So, and there he is doing the
Now that
turning the crank.
is been returned then. It's been machined. It's
Yep.
not.
All right, well, thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I really appreciate Scott for giving this interview with me and trusting me with the car. So please subscribe and comment, and thanks for watching.